In the past 48 hours, multiple major outlets have lit up with reports about Pastor T.D. Jakes and the Potter's House, sending shockwaves through faith communities and social media channels alike. The story began when a Wall Street Journal exclusive disclosed that Jakes has secured a groundbreaking content deal valued at $120 million with a leading streaming service, making it one of the largest faith-based media partnerships in history. Behind that headline, however, lies a complex web of negotiations, unexpected stakeholder concerns, and strategic pivots that few observers fully appreciate. Insiders close to the negotiations say Jakes first floated the idea in late 2022 after a private screening of his documentary series, which chronicles the rise of contemporary Black megachurches. Executives from a top-tier streaming platform, reportedly Netflix, were so impressed that they invited Jakes and his production team to pitch a slate of original programming blending scripted drama, live worship services, and a mini docuseries on community outreach. According to sources, Jakes insisted on maintaining creative control and editorial oversight, compelling the platform to revise its standard first look terms in favor of a co-production model. The resulting agreement grants the Potter's House full artistic autonomy while committing the streamer to a minimum of 3 new seasons of content over the next 5 years. But it wasn't smooth sailing. A faction within Jakes's inner circle, led by longtime advisors and church board members, warned that such a high-profile media tie-up risked diluting the church's core mission. They argued that too much focus on Hollywood could alienate congregants who value the sanctuary's traditional worship experience. Emails obtained by a faith industry newsletter reveal intense back and forth over clauses governing live service broadcasts and the use of church branding. Ultimately, Jakes prevailed by committing 10% of streaming revenue to the Potter's House Global Outreach Fund, assuaging concerns that financial gain would overshadow ministry. Meanwhile, skepticism emerged from a very different quarter. A handful of evangelical watchdog groups raised questions about whether a predominantly secular streaming service could uphold theological integrity. One organization issued a statement asking, "Will Jakes' sermons be subject to editorial cuts? Will his more controversial social justice messages survive corporate review?" In response, the streamer's head of content publicly affirmed that all programming under this pact remains unfiltered, promising to publish full-length worship services alongside companion discussion guides vetted by Jakes' own theological team. On the ground in Dallas, buzz among congregants has been electric. The Potter's House main campus saw record attendance last Sunday, as churchgoers shared screenshots of breaking headlines on their phones before services even began. A pop-up merchandising stall sold commemorative t-shirts emblazoned with TJ Times Streaming Launch 24, while ushers handed out QR-coded flyers inviting worshipers to join early access viewing parties. That grassroots excitement has prompted logistical headaches. Parking lots overflowed, and an extra service was added at the last minute to accommodate the surge, signaling that Jakes' media pivot has energized but also strained church infrastructure. Financial analysts have taken note as well. Public filings by the streamer suggest the deal could generate upwards of $200 million in incremental subscriptions tied directly to faith-based content. The prospect of tapping into the Potter's House's international network, estimates put its global membership at over 100,000 across 18 countries, offers streaming platforms a strategic beachhead in untapped markets. One media insider notes that no other church brings that scale of built-in global audience under one roof, making Jakes uniquely positioned to cross the $1 billion revenue mark for religious entertainment. But not everyone sees this as an unalloyed win. A small cadre of pastors publicly criticized Jakes for what they call celebrity ministry, warning that faith should not become yet another entertainment commodity. Social media debates have erupted under hashtags like #MinistryOrMarket and #TDJAdaptOrSuccumb. Jakes responded in a live Instagram Q&A, saying, "Our vision is to use this platform to share hope on a massive scale, never to glamorize myself." He pledged that special behind-the-scenes episodes will spotlight single-parent support programs, prison outreach, and the church's food security initiatives, ensuring that humanitarian work remains central. Legal observers have flagged another wrinkle. The deal's non-disclosure agreements reportedly run for 10 years, which some see as an unusually long period for a faith partnership. Critics worry that extended secrecy clauses could shield controversies, ranging from executive compensation to internal governance structures, from public view. In response, Jakes' legal team issued a statement clarifying that the NDAs apply only to proprietary production processes and not to core financial disclosures required under 501(c)(3) regulations. They emphasized that the Potter's House will continue filing transparent annual returns and maintaining open board meetings as per IRS rules. As the dust settles, two questions loom largest. Can T.D. Jakes leverage this record-setting media deal without undermining his church's spiritual authority? And will other faith leaders follow suit, sparking a new era of megachurch streaming wars? Or will they balk at the potential pitfalls? One thing is clear. By breaking headlines with a deal of this magnitude, Jakes has rewritten the playbook on how pastoral ministry intersects with global entertainment. Since the announcement, T.D. Jakes' inner circle has been working around the clock to prepare for the high-stakes rollout. Behind closed doors, executive producers at the Potter's House Media Group have convened daily creative sprints to finalize scripts for a faith-themed drama series slated to debut this summer. Sources describe the show as a cross between a family saga and an inspirational parable, following fictional congregants wrestling with real-world challenges, addiction, job loss, mental health, against the backdrop of a vibrant megachurch community modeled on Jakes' own. Writers have been urged to balance emotional heft with moments of humor, all while weaving in core theological themes drawn straight from Jakes' sermons. Meanwhile, marketing teams have mapped out a three-phase teaser campaign. Phase 1, already in motion, leverages brief pastor-style sound bites, Jakes' trademark invocations of destiny calls, and breakthrough moments, optimized for social feeds. Phase 2 will roll out cinematic trailers during primetime on faith-focused cable channels and sports broadcasts, aiming to attract both devoted believers and mainstream viewers. Phase 3, timed to coincide with Jakes' Easter weekend pulpit appearances, will feature live watch parties at select Potter's House campuses, complete with themed giveaways and interactive prayer walls. Church insiders note that these events will serve a dual purpose: celebrating the media deal's promise and stress-testing live audience engagement ahead of the streaming launch. Yet not everyone is celebrating. A cadre of traditionalist pastors has launched a Return to the Pew online petition decrying what they see as the commercialization of ministry. Their open letter calls the streaming deal unaccountable entertainment and urges viewers to consume worship through established church channels rather than subscription platforms. The petition has garnered tens of thousands of signatures in just 72 hours, and conservative bloggers are amplifying its message with headlines like, "Has Jakes sold his soul to Silicon Valley?" Jakes' team has so far refused to issue a direct rebuttal, preferring instead to amplify positive testimonials from congregants and faith influencers who praise the project's potential to reach new hearts. Industry analysts caution that merging religious content with big-budget entertainment carries its own set of complexities. Faith-based media has historically struggled to secure mainstream subscribers beyond a core Christian audience. Netflix, for instance, greenlit speculative faith dramas in the past only to see viewership plateau within the first month. Executives familiar with those projects point to the importance of narrative quality. Believers will tune in for Jakes' name, but non-believers need compelling characters and universal story arcs to stay. To address this, the Potter's House team is reportedly tapping veteran showrunners with credits on both secular dramas and faith films, aiming to craft storylines that bridge demographic divides without diluting doctrinal integrity. On Capitol Hill, the streaming deal has even caught the attention of faith and media lawmakers. Representative Anna Jones, co-chair of the Congressional Faith and Media Caucus, praised Jakes' initiative as an innovative model for tradition meets technology, but hinted at concerns regarding content moderation. In a recent hearing on digital platform responsibility, she asked streaming executives how they plan to handle potentially polarizing sermon excerpts or politically charged messages from Jakes' archive. The executives assured lawmakers that all content will adhere to standard platform policies against hate speech, and that any devotional segments addressing hot-button issues, race, social justice, sexuality, will include contextual disclaimers and panel discussions to foster respectful dialogue. Back in Dallas, The deal's revenue projections are already influencing the Potter's House's operational strategy. Church leadership has convened special finance committees to determine how to allocate streaming proceeds. Proposals on the table include doubling the size of the church's Global Relief Fund, expanding vocational training centers in underserved communities, and offering sliding scale tuition for the Potter's House Bible Institute. Some board members advocate establishing a media endowment to ensure long-term stability for faith-based productions, arguing that a single $120 million infusion could yield sustainable content funding if managed like a traditional charitable trust. These financial debates underscore that, with great income comes complex stewardship choices. Finally, whispers in entertainment circles suggest that Jakes is eyeing a cameo on late-night talk shows and daytime news segments next month to personally introduce the venture. Insider chatter points to tentative appearances on both Christian networks like TBN and major outlets such as CBS Mornings, signaling a dual-track publicity push. By straddling both faith-centric and mainstream platforms, Jakes aims to reinforce his role as a bridge figure between sacred and secular media. Should these appearances resonate, they may cement his status not just as a megachurch pastor, but as a bona fide media mogul leading a new frontier in spiritually infused entertainment. In the weeks since the streaming pact broke, T.D. Jakes has quietly restructured his leadership team to manage the new media empire. Church insiders report that the Potter's House Media Group has onboarded former studio executives to serve as co-CEOs, one veteran of faith-based networks to oversee sacred content integrity, and one Hollywood producer to handle platform relations and budgeting. Meanwhile, Jakes himself has shifted his daily routine, reserving morning hours solely for spiritual preparation, prayer, scripture study, and pastoral letters, before diving into afternoon strategy sessions on series scripts, sponsorship deals, and a growing slate of faith, commerce ventures. This disciplined calendar is intended to safeguard his pastoral role even as his media persona expands. On the public front, Jakes has unleashed a flurry of interviews to frame the narrative on his own terms. In a candid sit-down with Christian Broadcasting Network, he described the deal as divine timing, emphasizing that the magnitude of the streaming contract was not about personal fame, but about lifting up voices that need to be heard. He vowed that every episode would include moments of raw testimony, unscripted clips from live congregants who attribute life transformations to their faith journeys, cementing a bridge between scripted drama and authentic ministry. Those remarks generated headlines praising his transparency. In parallel mainstream interviews, he stressed that the project would tackle social issues, from racial equity to mental health stigma, through God's lens, not the world's. At the same time, a behind-the-scenes friction is emerging over audience metrics. Streaming executives have pressed Jakes' team for weekly viewership reports, demographic breakdowns, and trending topic analyses that could shape editorial decisions. But Jakes' theological advisors caution against over-reliance on data, arguing that faith content must sometimes transcend conventional audience drivers. According to sources, negotiations continue over a clause that would protect sermon segments and worship broadcasts from algorithmic editing, even if they fail to hit typical engagement thresholds. Jakes has pushed back, insisting that spiritual impact cannot be reduced to click-through rates. One internal memo quotes him as saying, "Our faith is measured in changed lives, not Nielsen points." On social media, the deal has sparked a new wave of T.D. Jakes themed podcasts and YouTube commentaries. Influencer channels dissect his every strategic move, from logo reveals to studio facility tours, while others critique his embrace of secular platforms. One popular host launched a mini-series called Profit or Product, interviewing theologians on whether TV ministry can avoid corporate dilution. Both camps converge on one point. Jakes' unprecedented scale has raised the stakes for every faith leader considering media expansion. His choices now serve as a blueprint, successful or not, for megachurches eyeing their own deals with Amazon, Disney+, or boutique religious networks. Internationally, the Potter's House Network is gearing up to localize content for Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. Early talks with regional leaders in countries like Nigeria, Kenya, Brazil, and the Philippines aim to produce dubbed series and spin-offs featuring local pastors and worship styles. This strategy builds on Jakes' 2019 invitation to Ethiopian church authorities to host a live service simulcast. Now, he plans structured forms of co-production. Industry insiders predict that localized episodes could dramatically broaden global footprint, but they also raise questions about theological consistency across vastly different cultural contexts. Negotiations remain ongoing on how to align core doctrine with regional customs without alienating either side. Within the Potter's House congregation, reactions are mixed but overwhelmingly hopeful. In a recent town hall-style gathering, Jake surveyed a cross-section of members, youth pastors, small group leaders, and longtime volunteers, gathered in an auxiliary sanctuary. He solicited unfiltered feedback on the streaming deal. Will recorded worship streams enhance community for shut-ins? Do we need new training programs to produce media-savvy lay leaders? Congregants proposed establishing a ministry media academy to train aspiring Christian filmmakers, sound engineers, and content curators. Jakes endorsed the idea, promising seed funding and academic partnerships with film schools. That move underscored his intent to democratize content creation within the church, not monopolize it. Key to Jakes' long-term vision is a multi-tier partnership model with smaller faith communities. He has quietly drafted MOUs offering template agreements to regional churches, affiliate branding, shared revenue streams, and access to production resources for local live service broadcasts. In return, affiliates would adhere to a guiding covenant, ensuring theological alignment and ethical use of church donations. This federated approach could create a virtual network of dozens, or even hundreds, of localized Potter's House campuses, each contributing original footage and testimonies to a global content pool. If executed effectively, it would blur lines between top-down megachurch broadcasts and grassroots storytelling. Meanwhile, political and civic leaders have begun courting Jakes for his ability to mobilize large audiences. Mayors from Atlanta to Dallas have extended invitations for him to speak at economic development summits, citing his reputation for transformational leadership. In Washington, faith lobbyists have floated Jakes' name as a potential advisor on social policy initiatives, from prison reform to workforce training. Those overtures have ignited debate within the church. Some advisors applaud the chance to influence public policy, while others warn that partnering too closely with government could compromise spiritual autonomy. Jakes has tread carefully, accepting nonpartisan civic roles but declining any direct lobbying functions or political endorsements. As Section 3 draws to a close, Jakes stands at a crossroads, balancing creative control with corporate partnership demands, nurturing grassroots empowerment amid global expansion, and navigating political engagements without blurring ministry boundaries. The success or misstep of this streaming venture will ripple far beyond Dallas, shaping the future of faith media for generations. Whether he can steward this massive platform without losing the soul of his ministry remains the defining question of his unprecedented era. Simultaneously, Jakes' team has been laying groundwork for a second slate of content that goes beyond drama and worship streams. Insiders reveal plans for a podcast network under the Potter's House banner, tentatively dubbed Faith and Fortune, featuring interviews with entrepreneurs, authors, athletes, and fellow pastors. Each episode will pair spiritual insights with practical life strategies, from negotiating business deals to navigating personal crises. Dozens of pilot recordings have already been made, including a sit-down with a Fortune 500 CEO who credits weekly Bible study at the church as a key to her resilience during corporate turnarounds. By diversifying into conversational media, Jakes aims to capture audiences who crave both motivation and faith-rooted guidance in bite-sized formats. At the same time, the church's digital division is beta testing an artificial intelligence prayer companion app. Powered by natural language processing, it will offer daily devotional prompts, personalized encouragement based on user input, and a virtual altar where congregants can submit prayer requests that are visually mapped to interactive global charts. While critics warn of over-reliance on technology for spiritual disciplines, Jakes' advisors argue that the app extends pastoral reach, particularly among younger generations who live on their phones. Early trials among small group leaders have shown a 40% uptick in daily engagement with scripture reading, suggesting a strong appetite for tech-enabled faith practices. But not all developments have been smooth. In the last fortnight, two prominent faith influencers posted scathing critiques of the streaming deal, accusing Jakes of selling out and warning congregants to follow the cross, not the credits. One widely shared video contrasted clips of traditional congregational worship with teaser scenes of the upcoming drama series, arguing that ministry should be communal and cost-free rather than subscription-driven entertainment. Jakes' communications director has since engaged directly with these critics, inviting them to private roundtable discussions on the streaming model's pros and cons. That willingness to listen, rather than dismiss dissenters, signals a more open leadership style, though it also carries the risk of prolonged public debate. On the financial front, advisors have outlined three potential reinvestment strategies for initial streaming revenues. The first would bolster the Potter's House Global Outreach Fund, tripling grant capacity for international relief projects. The second would seed a faith media accelerator, providing microgrants and mentorship to small faith communities seeking to produce their own high-quality video content. The third option involves expanding the church's physical footprint, purchasing land for new campuses in rapidly growing metro areas like Houston, Atlanta, and Lagos. Each path promises distinct impact, but also raises questions about balancing digital investments with traditional brick-and-mortar ministry. Jakes has indicated he intends to allocate roughly one-third of streaming proceeds to each initiative, a compromise reflecting his dual commitment to global reach and local presence. Community engagement remains a crucial barometer of success. In recent weeks, lay-led watch parties have sprung up not just at Potter's House campuses, but also in coffee shops, college dorms, and correctional facilities. On Instagram, users share images of small gatherings complete with branded snacks and discussion guides, a sign that grassroots enthusiasm may eclipse even the official launch events. Observers note, however, that sustaining these organic clusters will require ongoing content updates and community-building tools, lest initial excitement fade. To address this, Jakes' media division is developing a subscription-based community kit, digital toolboxes with sermon outlines, small group curriculum, and interactive livestream Q&As with pastoral staff. Rolling out in beta to 500 volunteer leaders this summer, the kits will test whether curated support can both empower and retain dispersed audiences. Looking ahead, the Global Youth Climate Summit in Edinburgh, now just weeks away, will serve as the first major litmus test of Jakes' rehabilitated public profile. Invitations have gone to 200 emerging leaders from 25 countries, including activists, podcasters, and founders of faith-based startups. The summit agenda includes breakout workshops on media literacy, digital discipleship, and faith-driven entrepreneurship. Jakes will deliver the keynote address, framing environmental stewardship as an act of worship, an extension of his broader vision to fuse spiritual values with societal transformation. Success at Edinburgh could catalyze further invitations to speak at international conferences in Dubai, Seoul, and Sao Paulo, cementing his role as a global faith influencer. In the weeks to come, all eyes will be on how Jakes balances creative control with corporate demands, thrives amid theological scrutiny, and translates streaming headlines into sustained ministry impact. His next steps, podcasts rolling out, app launches, reinvestment decisions, and the high-profile summit, will determine whether Pastor T.D. Jakes can redefine pastoral leadership for the digital age, or whether the siren call of headlines will overshadow the humble service at the heart of his calling. Beyond the major programming and partnership developments, Pastor T.D. Jakes' record-setting streaming deal is already reshaping the Potter's House's grassroots initiatives in unexpected ways. Church leaders have convened a new Media Impact Council to track real-time analytics alongside traditional measures of spiritual growth. Drawing on enrollment data from discipleship classes, attendance figures at city outreach centers, and now on platform engagement metrics, the council is creating an integrated dashboard, dubbed the Faith Fusion Tracker, that correlates sermon themes with spikes in community service signups. Early test data show that weeks featuring clips on financial stewardship yield a 23% uptick in enrollment in debt management courses, while episodes highlighting mental health awareness correspond with a 17% increase in counseling service appointments. By blending digital and physical measures, Jakes' team aims to validate that spiritual impact can be both felt and quantified without turning faith into a series of KPIs. Meanwhile, at the local level, the Potter's House chapter in Atlanta piloted a hybrid event this month, a live worship night simulcast to 3 other city campuses and to online subscribers. Organizers report that physical attendance rose 12% from the previous month, while virtual viewership peaked at over 5,000 simultaneous connections, roughly triple the typical livestream count. Congregation members called it the best of both worlds, noting that the shared experience fostered a sense of unity across neighborhoods that had never previously interacted. Senior pastors from the host campus say they plan to expand the model to a quarterly citywide convergence, leveraging streaming to unite urban hubs in worship, small group ministry, and collaborative service projects. Not everyone sees unalloyed progress. A group of faith technology ethicists recently published an open letter warning that over-reliance on digital platforms risks spiritual distance by design. They caution that algorithm-driven content recommendations could inadvertently silo believers into echo chambers, limiting exposure to diverse theological perspectives. In response, Jakes' team is exploring an Interfaith Insights feature, a rotating panel discussion built into the platform that invites scholars and leaders from multiple traditions to engage in moderated dialogue. By integrating this feature, the church aims to leverage streaming's reach while safeguarding against insular content consumption. The pilot is scheduled to launch next quarter, with analysts monitoring whether interfaith modules maintain viewer engagement comparable to doctrinal programming. Simultaneously, the Potter's House is leveraging its new visibility to build civic alliances. As part of the streaming venture, Jakes has signed a memorandum with the Dallas Police Department to produce a community relations series exploring faith-based approaches to conflict resolution and youth mentorship. The series features frontline officers alongside church volunteers hosting workshops in neighborhoods hardest hit by gang violence. Early screenings elicited positive feedback from city council members, who view faith media as a means to strengthen trust between law enforcement and residents. Plans are underway to replicate the model in Atlanta and Houston, potentially broadening the streaming partnership's public policy influence. Adding a layer of innovative engagement, church technologists have begun experimenting with augmented reality, AR, features for smartphone users. Using the streaming app, congregants can access AR overlays during live services, digital scripture scrolls, interactive prayer prompts, and 3D visualizations of biblical scenes overlaid on their living rooms. While critics question whether AR distracts from genuine worship, pilot participants reported that the immersive elements deepened their understanding of sermon illustrations, and 68% said they spent more time reflecting on passages after services. If adoption rates stay high, the app will integrate AR modules as a permanent part of the digital worship experience. On the financial stewardship front, committees have drafted guidelines for revenue reinvestment that span immediate outreach and long-term infrastructure. A portion of proceeds will underwrite emergency relief grants for families affected by natural disasters, with funds distributed within 48 hours of application via a dedicated microgrant platform. Another tranche supports microloans for minority-owned small businesses, administered in partnership with local credit unions. These initiatives demonstrate Jakes' vision of streaming proceeds serving as catalytic capital. Viewers contribute indirectly by watching content that funds real-world impact, blurring the line between consumption and community transformation. Amid these sweeping programs, Jakes remains committed to personal pastoral duties. Schedules released this month show he plans 2 campus presence days per week, preaching, counseling, and meeting with ministry teams, balanced against remote media leadership sessions. Close aides say he views this rhythm as essential. Staying rooted in pastoral care ensures that big-picture media strategies remain grounded in the lived realities of congregants. It is, according to one advisor, the most important litmus test for authenticity in an era of potential spectacle. As Section 5 draws to a close, the question remains, will streaming headlines translate into sustained spiritual and social renewal? Or will the complexities of data, technology, and media partnerships dilute the power of simple, personal faith? All eyes now turn to the upcoming fall release schedule. The drama series premiere, the Faith and Fortune podcast launch, and the first AR worship modules. Success across these fronts will signal that T.D. Jakes has not only broken headlines, but has also redefined the frontier of pastoral ministry for a digital generation, merging the best of sanctuary and screen without losing the sacred heart at ministry's core. As the Potter's House streaming ecosystem settles into its inaugural season, Jakes and his leadership team are already plotting the next horizon, one that fuses innovation with the timeless rhythms of pastoral care. Over the coming months, they plan to iterate on viewer feedback, refining narrative arcs in the drama series to deepen character development and sharpen theological resonance. Early data is guiding writers to introduce more intergenerational storylines, reflecting the reality that today's faith communities span boomers through Gen Z. At the same time, technical teams are engineering app enhancements, adaptive UI layouts for seniors with limited dexterity, and offline sermon downloads for viewers in low-bandwidth regions, ensuring that digital ministry remains as accessible as a Sunday service. Behind the scenes, the Media Impact Council is designing longitudinal studies to track how streaming content influences congregational vitality over time. By surveying both online subscribers and in-pew attendees, they aim to discern whether digital engagement correlates not just with increased viewership, but with sustained spiritual growth, increased volunteerism, deeper small group connections, and even shifts in local community health indicators. Early pilot results suggest a promising link between content themes, like forgiveness or financial stewardship, and measurable upticks in related outreach programs, hinting that faith media can function as both inspiration and engine for concrete social change. But Jakes' team also remains vigilant about potential pitfalls. Attention spans on streaming platforms average 16 minutes, a far cry from hour-long sermons. To meet this reality, editors are experimenting with modular sermon clips, 2 to 5-minute micro-sessions that distill core messages into shareable bites. These segments are engineered to feed social media algorithms while linking viewers back to the full-length services. There's also a plan to integrate automated spiritual checkpoints within the app, gentle prompts that invite users to pause and reflect at key narrative moments. Keeping faith alive in an age of rapid content consumption requires this careful choreography between brevity and depth. Globally, the Potter's House is negotiating content syndication pacts in emerging markets. Negotiators report interest from streaming platforms in India, South Africa, and Southeast Asia seeking to localize faith content for regional audiences. Jakes' model is designed to empower local pastors to craft contextualized interludes, brief segments filmed in native languages that bookend the main episodes. This global-local hybrid promises both scale and sensitivity, blending Jakes' guiding vision with the unique cultural textures of each community. Early market analyses suggest that faith-based series can achieve viewer retention rates on par with mainstream dramas when they tap into local storytelling traditions. On the academic front, Temple University has launched a research fellowship in faith media innovation, partnering with the Potter's House to study the intersection of streaming, theology, and sociology. Fellows will analyze user data, conduct focus groups, and publish peer-reviewed articles on topics ranging from digital evangelism ethics to the economics of faith media. By bringing scholarly rigor to Jakes' media venture, this collaboration aims to elevate pastoral streaming from novelty to a mature field of inquiry, shaping best practices for religious broadcasters worldwide. As these multifaceted initiatives unfold, Jakes himself continues to emphasize that media success ultimately serves a higher purpose, building bridges of hope, justice, and compassion in a fractured world. His closing words in a recent board meeting encapsulated this ethos. Content is powerful only when it points people to the gospel lived out in concrete acts of love. Our vision is that every click, every stream, every downloaded sermon must translate into service, feeding the hungry, comforting the broken, and standing with the marginalized. That commitment anchors the streaming empire to the church's founding mission, ensuring that no matter how headlines shift, the heart of the Potter's House remains steadfast. Looking ahead, the winter 2025 programming slate includes a documentary on refugee resettlement efforts, a scripted series exploring faith journeys in the tech industry, and live-streamed roundtables on climate justice co-hosted with international NGO partners. Jakes has also teased an ambitious Faith and Fortune conference series, live events in 10 global cities featuring hybrid worship, keynote addresses, and breakout media training workshops for church leaders. These live experiences will loop back into the streaming platform, creating a seamless ecosystem where digital and physical ministry reinforce each other. In the end, this record-breaking deal is much more than a media milestone. It's an experiment in reimagining pastoral leadership for the 21st century. Can streaming expand the reach of the gospel without dampening its personal call to discipleship? Will digital tools augment rather than replace the irreplaceable power of face-to-face fellowship? As Pastor T.D. Jakes and the Potter's House chart this uncharted territory, their success or missteps will illuminate a path for faith communities everywhere. One thing is certain: the next chapter in streaming ministry has begun, and the world is watching.